In 2022, I was living in a small, peaceful town with my husband and our dog, Buddy. Our house was cozy, with a big backyard where Buddy loved to run around. We always felt safe in our neighborhood. Everyone knew each other, and it was the kind of place where people rarely locked their doors. One chilly October night, something strange happened. It was a Tuesday, and the moon shone brightly in the sky, casting long shadows across our backyard. My husband and I had just settled down on the couch to watch a movie. Buddy, our large and protective German shepherd, lay at our feet, his ears twitching occasionally as he dozed. Around midnight, just as the movie was getting to the good part, Buddy's head shot up. His ears were fully alert, and a low growl rumbled in his throat. My husband and I exchanged worried glances. Buddy only growled when something was wrong. "What's wrong, boy?" I asked, trying to calm him with a gentle pat. But Buddy was already on his feet, his growl growing louder. He moved to the back door, his body tense, and stared out into the darkness of our backyard. My husband muted the TV, and we both listened intently. At first, there was nothing but the sound of crickets chirping. Then, faintly, I heard a rustling noise, like someone moving through the bushes. My heart started to race. Who could be out there at this hour? Buddy began barking furiously, his loud, deep barks echoing through the night. My husband grabbed a flashlight and cautiously approached the back door. "Stay here," he whispered to me, his voice barely audible over Buddy's barking. He slowly opened the door and Buddy bolted outside, barking and growling as he ran towards the back gate. I watched anxiously from the doorway as my husband shone the flashlight around the yard. The beam of light swept across the bushes and trees, but there was no sign of anyone. Eventually, Buddy's barking subsided, and he returned to the house, still on high alert. My husband closed and locked the door, his face pale. "We should check the gate," he said. "Something's not right." The next morning, we went outside to inspect the yard. As we approached the back gate, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The lock on the gate was broken, the metal twisted and bent. It was clear that someone had tried to force their way in. I felt a chill run down my spine. Who would want to break into our yard? And why? Later that day, my husband decided to review the footage from our CCTV camera. We had installed it a few months ago for extra security, but we had never needed to check it until now. We sat down at the computer and played the footage from the night before. At first, everything seemed normal. The yard was quiet, and Buddy was lying on the porch. Then, around midnight, we saw a figure moving near the back gate. The person was wearing dark clothes and a hood, making it difficult to see their face. They approached the gate and fiddled with the lock for a few minutes before finally breaking it. As the figure moved closer to the house, Buddy suddenly sprang to his feet and started barking. The intruder hesitated for a moment, then quickly turned and ran back towards the gate. Just as they were about to disappear from view, the hood slipped off, revealing their face for a brief second. My husband and I gasped in unison. It was our neighbor, Mr. Thompson. We had always thought he was a bit odd, but we never suspected he could do something like this. He lived alone and kept to himself, rarely speaking to anyone in the neighborhood. We didn't know what to do. Should we confront him? Call the police? We decided to talk to a few of our other neighbors first and see if they had noticed anything strange. Over the next few days, we learned that we weren't the only ones who had experienced unusual occurrences. Another neighbor, Mrs. Henry, had found her garden gate open one morning, and Mr. Patel had noticed footprints near his shed. Everyone was on edge, and the peaceful atmosphere of our little town had been shattered. We finally decided to report the incident to the police. They came to our house, reviewed the CCTV footage, and took statements from us and our neighbors. They promised to investigate and keep an eye on Mr. Thompson. A few days later, the police visited Mr. Thompson's house. They questioned him, but he denied everything. Without concrete evidence, there wasn't much they could do. However, they advised us to be vigilant and to call them immediately if anything else happened. Weeks passed and things slowly returned to normal. We replaced the lock on the back gate and installed extra lighting around the yard. Buddy seemed to sense our unease and was more protective than ever. One night, just as I was starting to feel safe again, Buddy began growling. My heart raced as I listened for any sounds outside. My husband grabbed the flashlight and peeked out the window. There, near the back gate, was Mr. Thompson, his face illuminated by the moonlight. He was just standing there, staring at our house. My husband immediately called the police, and within minutes, they arrived and took Mr. Thompson away for questioning. This time, they found enough evidence to link him to several break-ins in the neighborhood. He was arrested and charged, and the town breathed a collective sigh of relief. The incident left a lasting mark on us. We had always felt safe in our little town, but we learned that danger could lurk even in the most unexpected places. From then on, we were more cautious and always kept a watchful eye on our surroundings. And Buddy, our loyal protector, remained ever vigilant, ready to defend us from any threat. Before we get into the next story, if you come for the first time, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon for upcoming scary stories. We need your support. Please share these stories with your friends and family. Thanks. I never thought our quiet neighborhood would become the setting for such a terrifying story. We moved into our cozy house about 5 years ago, looking for a peaceful place to raise our 2 kids, Lily and Max. Everything seemed perfect. The street was lined with old oak trees, the neighbors were friendly, and the park was just a short walk away. It was an ideal place for our family. Our next-door neighbor, Mr. Charles, was a bit of an oddball. He was an elderly man who lived alone in a large, dilapidated house. He rarely spoke to anyone, always kept to himself, and his yard was overgrown with weeds. I often saw him peeking out from behind his curtains, watching the street with a stern expression. I thought it was just the quirks of an old man who had lived alone for too long. One sunny afternoon, as I was playing with Lily and Max in our backyard, I noticed a flash from Mr. Charles's upstairs window. It was quick, almost like a camera flash. I shrugged it off, thinking it was just the sun reflecting off something in his room. But then it happened again. This time I was sure it was a camera. Mr. Charles was taking pictures of us. A chill ran down my spine. I pulled the kids closer and led them inside. I didn't want to alarm them, so I kept my thoughts to myself. But as the days went by, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. I started paying closer attention, and it became clear that Mr. Charles was always watching us. Whether we were in the yard, on the porch, or even just walking to the car, his eyes followed us. One evening, I decided to talk to my husband, Tom, about it. We sat at the kitchen table after the kids had gone to bed, and I told him everything. Tom was skeptical at first, thinking I was just being paranoid, but when he saw the fear in my eyes, he agreed to keep an eye on Mr. Charles as well. The next day, Tom and I took turns watching the house. It didn't take long for Tom to notice the same unsettling behavior. Mr. Charles was indeed taking pictures. He had a camera with a long lens, and he didn't even try to hide it. He pointed it directly at our house, snapping away whenever we were outside. Tom decided it was time to confront Mr. Charles. He marched over to the old house and banged on the door. After a few moments, the door creaked open, and Mr. Charles stood there, looking frail and confused. Tom demanded to know why he was taking pictures of our family. Mr. Charles just stared at him, not saying a word. Finally, he mumbled something about enjoying photography and shut the door in Tom's face. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining all the horrible reasons someone would take pictures of our kids. My mind raced with fear and anger. What if he was a predator? What if he was planning something terrible? The not knowing was the worst part. The next morning, we called the police. 2 officers arrived at our house, and we explained everything to them. They seemed concerned and promised to look into it. They went over to Mr. Charles's house and spoke with him for a long time. When they came back, they told us that Mr. Charles had indeed been taking pictures, but they couldn't find any evidence of a crime. They advised us to keep an eye on the situation and to call them if anything else happened. Days turned into weeks, and the creepy behavior continued. Every time I saw that camera flash, my heart pounded in my chest. I felt like a prisoner in my own home. We stopped letting the kids play outside, and I even started keeping the curtains closed. It was no way to live, but I didn't know what else to do. One afternoon, I decided to go through our old photo albums to distract myself. As I flipped through the pages, I found a picture of Lily and Max at the park. But something was off. In the background, I could see Mr. Charles sitting on a bench, watching them. My hands trembled as I realized that he had been watching us for much longer than we thought. That was the final straw. We called the police again and showed them the photo. This time, they took it more seriously. They got a warrant and searched Mr. Charles's house. What they found was chilling. In his attic, there were hundreds of photographs of our family. Pictures of Lily and Max playing in the yard, us sitting on the porch, even shots of us through our windows. Mr. Charles was arrested, but he never spoke a word to explain himself. The police were baffled. They couldn't find any evidence that he had harmed anyone or planned to. It was as if he was just obsessed with our family for no reason. The whole ordeal left us shaken. We moved to a new neighborhood, hoping to leave the nightmare behind. But the fear still lingers. Every time I see a flash of light or feel like someone is watching us, I remember Mr. Charles and his silent obsession. We never found out why he did it. The mystery of his intentions haunts me to this day. All I know is that we were lucky to catch him before anything worse happened. And I hope, wherever he is now, he isn't watching anyone else the way he watched us. I live in a small, quiet town where nothing much happens. My name is Anna, and I am a college student. I rent a small apartment on the third floor of an old building. The building is old but cozy, and I like my little home. Next to my apartment lives an elderly woman named Mrs. Harper. Mrs. Harper is very strange. She always stares at me whenever I come or go. Her eyes follow me, and she never smiles. It makes me feel uncomfortable, but I try to ignore it. One night, I was studying late for an exam. It was around midnight when I heard a knock on my door. I was surprised because no one ever visited me that late. I went to the door and looked through the peephole. It was Mrs. Harper. Her eyes looked wide and scared. I opened the door slowly. "Yes," I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Someone is breaking into your house," she whispered. Her voice trembled, and she looked over her shoulder like she was afraid someone was following her. My heart started to race. "What? Are you sure?" "Yes, I saw someone climbing through your window," she insisted. "You should come with me. We need to call the police." I was scared, but I nodded and grabbed my phone. Mrs. Harper led me down the hallway to her apartment. I dialed 911 and told the operator what Mrs. Harper had said. The operator told me to stay on the line and wait for the police. Mrs. Harper and I sat in her living room. Her apartment was dark and smelled like old books. I tried to calm myself down, but I couldn't stop thinking about someone being in my apartment. After a few minutes, Mrs. Harper stood up. "I think I heard something," she said. "We should check on your apartment." I didn't want to go, but I felt like I had to. Mrs. Harper led the way, and I followed her back to my apartment. When we got there, the door was wide open. Gasped. "I locked it before I left," I said, feeling a chill run down my spine. Mrs. Harper nodded. "Stay behind me," she said. She stepped into the apartment, and I followed her, my heart pounding. The apartment was dark and silent. We walked through the living room and into the bedroom. I turned on the light, and that's when I saw him. A man was standing by my dresser, going through my things. He turned and looked at us with cold eyes. I froze in fear. Mrs. Harper didn't. She smiled. "Good job, Tony," she said to the man. My stomach dropped. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice shaking. Tony walked toward me. "Just stay quiet and you won't get hurt," he said. Mrs. Harper grabbed my arm. Her grip was surprisingly strong for an old woman. "We just want your valuables," she said. "Give us your money and jewelry, and we'll leave." I was terrified, but I did as they said. I gave them my wallet, my watch, and the few pieces of jewelry I owned. Tony stuffed everything into a bag. When they had taken everything, Mrs. Harper smiled at me again. "Thank you, dear. Have a good night," she said, and then they left. I stood there in shock, unable to believe what had just happened. I called the police again and told them everything. They came quickly, but by the time they arrived, Mrs. Harper and Tony were gone. The police searched my apartment and the building. They found no sign of Mrs. Harper or the man who had robbed me. It was like they had vanished into thin air. The police told me they would keep looking, but I could see in their eyes that they didn't have much hope. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about Mrs. Harper and how she had tricked me. I felt so foolish and scared. The next day, I went to my landlord and told him everything. He was shocked and promised to help me find a new apartment. I moved out of that building as quickly as I could. I never saw Mrs. Harper or Tony again, but the memory of that night still haunts me. Every time I hear a knock on my door, my heart races and I feel a chill down my spine. I learned to be more careful and to trust my instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And I will never forget the strange, staring eyes of Mrs. Harper and the night she brought terror into my life.